Alright, this is my video reflection log for Jennifer Kvammen for the Service Learning AEA class. Kind of feel like Avatar, recording everything here, or maybe I should say Stardate 17.597643-1, I don't know. But here goes. One of the biggest quotes that really hit home with me was, you don't have to be successful to be successful. With the students that I work with, they are so afraid of trying because they are afraid of failure. It's like terror to them. I mean, they don't even want to look at it if it can mean that they failed. They give up on the trying because what they don't understand is that part of, even though you may not have gotten it right, you still learned something. There's something valuable that came out of it. And if I can get students to realize that part of it through any of the service learning projects or even just in a regular class, that would be a huge, huge plus, because every day it's like, oh, this is stupid. No, it's not stupid. It's just because you don't want to do it, because you don't want to fail. You don't want to try. Because somewhere in their life they have hit failure or been told they were failures, so it's like no more. So if that is something that can come out of service learning, then kudos to service learning, because every day that's something that I see. The other, well, I shouldn't say the other, one other thing was one of my big ha-has was the youth voice part. That was a big hole in my understanding of how service learning, worked. I knew that it was a project, I knew that it had to be tied to curriculum and then to the community. And so what I was really missing was that part where the students have input and how important student voice really is. And I know from experience, because like our garden project that we started, in the spring, I thought the connection to my geometry classes, I came up with the idea and thought, hey, the kids, this is something that they would enjoy doing, in connection to the garden, and it would be better than doing worksheets. After a while, I started to see them be like, you know what, this isn't cool anymore, or, they just weren't buying in. Well, it's because they didn't have the say. They didn't have the choice on what it was that they wanted to do. And so, since there was no buy-in, it was just another regular class for them. Even though I was doing something different, it wasn't their choice. So understanding that youth voice is, one of the biggest parts of a service learning project is an eye-opener for me. What also I liked was how it showed us how youth voice can be done in many different ways. The whole project doesn't have to be student-driven. And that's where teachers have a lot of issues, is that how do I let the students be in charge? Teachers don't want that, because if students are in charge, what do they need us for? But knowing that the students can have say in the project, maybe once I give them the curriculum, say, okay, what can we do now? Or I can say, hey, this is the project, such as the garden, how does it tie into math? Or if we come up with the issue, or as long as there's, like, if I say, this is the curriculum, here are 3 choices that you can do for projects, as long as somewhere throughout the whole thing, students have input, students have say, and it affects how they are connected to the community and to the curriculum. Because without that, then they're not going to have that buy-in, and they're just going to be out the door like they already are. And something that I also realized that with youth voice, they talked about how it's something that carries on with them. If they can start, especially if at a younger age, and it continues through their educational career, that once they graduate from high school, it's something that they're more likely to become involved in after high school. They see that they matter, they see that they have something to give to the community, and it's like, hey, this makes me feel good, self-esteem goes up, and they want to keep doing that and reaching out. And then on the opposite side is that the community sees these students in a different light, because right now the perception of Kansville is, oh, those are the bad kids, they're there because they're on probation, or they're just stupid, they don't know anything, and that's why they go to Kansville. So getting these students out into the community and having them be the leaders of these projects And then the community is saying, wow, these aren't the students I thought went to Canesville. And then those relationships become a big cycle, and maybe from there they say, hey, this student could be a really good employee for me. Maybe they get hired, or that leads to a scholarship, or just something that continues on other than just in the classroom. So for me, the youth voice part was huge, and getting my mind to wrap around how to implement it and get those choices in there. That's going to be one of my biggest things, because I know I had all these project ideas in my head, but then the more we start talking about it, I'm like, wait a minute, how can I go ahead with this because I don't have any student voice? How can I go to planning, this whole big idea with, oh, wait a minute, there's no student voice? So I guess for me, I have to step back and decide, if I want to do my Habitat for Humanity project, I say, okay, here's what I want to do. How do you see it connected? What part can we do math-wise? But getting too far ahead of myself, getting the whole thing planned without student voice is something I know I can't do. And I really like the planning log that came in the book, because that section that says youth voice, it's kind of a, hey, did you remember that that has to be in there? Because if that part is empty, I have to go back and say, okay, really, where did the students have choice? So it's a good reminder for me that the youth voice matters. And it's something that I'm going to be implementing basically this summer, is with our garden. We've already had a lot of people ask, hey, what are you going to do with the vegetables? Are you going to take them and sell them at the farmer's market? Are you just going to give them away? Or what are you going to do? And I go, well, I'm really not the one who has to make that decision. I go, really, it's the students who are working on it this summer who are going to make that decision. And they just kind of look at me like, but you're the teacher. And it's like, well, but this is their project. They have to have some say. And they just, okay, they don't believe me. I think it's kind of like that the first time the teachers, are working on student voice. It's like, you're letting students make decisions. Well, this is their garden. They have to make, decide what they want to do with it. Because if I say, hey guys, we're just going to do this and give it to them, they're going to be like, well, I really wanted to do this. So that's going to be my first implementation. Big part is doing the garden and saying, all right guys, this is your say. What do you want to do with it? What options can you think of? And something that will carry into when we start school in the fall. The other thing that really hit home was the reflection part. I kind of knew that you're supposed to kind of gauge how you're doing, but not realizing that it's something that you should be doing day 1, day 3, all the way to end of the project. It's something that needs to be going throughout, and not only teacher reflection, but student reflection. And knowing that it's something to go through, and that it doesn't have to be a big deal, especially with those list ideas that you gave us, that can just be a little bit here, a little bit there. You can watch how the students' attitudes change. If all of a sudden you're looking at everyone's reflection and you're getting a bad vibe, then that should be a, hey, wait a minute, I need to change something up. I mean, if all the students aren't feeling good about it, then that should be a key to me that, we need to stop and take a look at what's going on. Or if maybe all the kids are feeling good about it, or someone comes up with an idea how to branch off, it's a good way to monitor whether this is a good idea, good project, and where to keep going from it. And definitely like the end, how it says that reflection needs to be a closure. If you don't do that end reflection, how did you feel about the whole process? What did it mean? Now that it's done, then it's not going to cement the learning for the students. I mean, whether it's the curriculum that they've learned or those community connections and relationships, either way, it's like taking, an inflatable anything and forgetting to put the cap on it to keep that air in. Otherwise, the air is just going to leak out, just like their knowledge or, how they felt about it. So by doing that end reflection and that demonstration, you put that lid on, and that knowledge and that learning, even if it wasn't the curriculum, those community connections and relationships are just as important, or those skills about responsibility, accountability. Those are the things that the students that I work with need the most. If they can work on that, the academics, will fall into place.